I opened my husband's voice note, and the next second, I saw a message pop up on my screen. Sorry, wrong person. But it was already too late, because the voice note was already playing. And the moment I heard his voice inside it, everything inside me went still. It's done, she didn't suspect anything. I stopped breathing for a second, because that she was me. My name is Laura Mitchell, and I've been married to Ethan for 4 years. Nothing about our life ever felt unusual before this moment. We weren't a dramatic couple. No big fights, no strange secrets, nothing that would make me question him. That's why this felt so out of place. A mistake like this didn't belong to him. I sat there staring at my phone, playing the voice note again and again, trying to convince myself there had to be a simple explanation. Maybe work, maybe a friend, maybe I misunderstood. But every time I heard it, the same sentence hit me the same way. It's done, she didn't suspect anything. I slowly lowered the phone. My hands felt colder than before. For a few minutes, I just sat there in silence, not moving, not thinking properly, just trying to calm my breathing. I told myself to forget it, to ask him later casually, to not jump to conclusions. But deep down, I already knew I wouldn't be able to forget it. When Ethan came home that evening, everything looked normal again. He greeted me like always, kissed my forehead, asked how my day was. His voice was calm, steady, familiar. But now I was watching him differently. Every small movement felt suspicious. Every glance at his phone felt intentional. Every silence felt heavier than before. And the worst part was, he was acting completely normal. That made it worse. I didn't ask him about the voice note. Not yet. Because I needed to be sure first. So I smiled. I answered him normally. I pretended everything was fine. But inside, something had already shifted. Something I couldn't undo. Later that night, we sat in the living room together. He was scrolling on his phone, relaxed. I was sitting beside him, pretending to watch TV, but my mind wasn't there. It was stuck on one sentence. It's done, she didn't suspect anything. At one point, I noticed him pause on his phone. Just for a second. Then, he tilted the screen away from me slightly. A small movement. But I saw it. And somehow that small thing made my chest tighten. Because normal people don't hide their screen from their wife for no reason. I stood up and said I was going to get water. He didn't react much. Just nodded slightly. But instead of going straight to the kitchen, I slowed down near the hallway. Something inside me told me to watch him. And I did. From there, I could see him clearly. Still on his phone. Still typing. And then his phone rang. Everything changed instantly. He looked at the screen, stood up quickly, and walked toward the balcony without even looking at me. Not a second wasted. Like he had been waiting for that call. That's when I moved. Quietly. Carefully. I followed him without making a sound. He was outside now, leaning on the railing, speaking in a low voice. I stopped behind the glass door where he couldn't see me, but I could hear him. I told you not like that. A pause. No. She still hasn't figured anything out yet. My body went cold. She still hasn't figured anything out. I stood there frozen. Because now I knew one thing for sure. This wasn't a mistake. And I was already inside something I didn't understand yet. I couldn't sleep that night. Every time I closed my eyes, I heard his voice again. She still hasn't figured anything out yet. It wasn't just a sentence anymore. It felt like something was sitting inside my mind, repeating itself over and over, refusing to let me rest. I kept turning in bed, trying to calm myself, trying to convince myself there was a simple explanation. But nothing felt simple anymore. And that scared me the most. The next morning, Ethan acted like nothing had happened. He made coffee like usual, asked me if I slept well, even smiled at me across the table. That normal behavior should have calmed me down. But it didn't. Because now I was noticing everything. The way he checked his phone before answering me. The way he paused for half a second before replying to simple questions. The way his attention kept drifting somewhere I couldn't reach. It all looked normal on the surface, but it didn't feel normal anymore. I decided not to confront him yet. Not until I was completely sure. Instead, I started watching him more closely. And the more I watched, the more I noticed patterns. He never left his phone unattended. He never let notifications appear fully on screen when I was near. And every time he stepped out for a call, it wasn't random. It was immediate. Like he already knew when the call would come. That evening, something small changed everything again. I was sitting in the living room when his phone lit up beside him. He glanced at it quickly, then turned the screen away like always. But this time, I saw a name flash for just a second before he hit it. I didn't recognize it, but my heart still reacted. Because why hide a name from your wife? Everything okay? I asked casually. He looked at me and smiled. Yeah, just work. But his hand was already holding the phone tighter. That answer didn't feel like truth. It felt like protection. Not protection for me, but from me. A few minutes later, he stood up again. I need to take this, he said, already walking toward the balcony. This time I didn't wait. I followed him, slowly, quietly. My heart was beating faster, but my mind was clearer than before. I needed to hear more. He was outside again, same position, same low voice. And this time, I heard more clearly. I told you I'm handling it, just stop calling so much. A pause. Then, no, she's still blind to it. My fingers tightened around the wall. Blind. That word hit harder than anything else, because it wasn't confusion anymore. It was intention. Someone was hiding something from me on purpose. And Ethan was part of it. I stepped back slowly before he could notice me. My breathing was uneven now. My mind was no longer trying to defend him. It was trying to understand him. And there's a big difference between the two. Because once you stop defending someone you love, you start seeing things you were never ready to see. That night, I sat alone in the dark for a long time. Not crying, not speaking, just thinking. Trying to connect dots that didn't want to connect yet. And somewhere inside me, a decision started forming. If Ethan wasn't going to tell me the truth, then I would find it myself, no matter what it cost me. After that night, I couldn't look at Ethan the same way again. Something had shifted inside me, and no matter how normal he tried to act, I could feel that distance growing between us. It wasn't loud or obvious, but it was there in the small things. The way he spoke less than before, the way he always seemed slightly distracted, and the way his phone had suddenly become something he never left unattended. I started noticing everything I had ignored before. Not because it was new, but because now I was finally paying attention. His routine was too perfect, too controlled. Every call came at the same kind of timing. Every message made him step away from the room. And every time I tried to look too closely, he somehow made sure I didn't see enough. One afternoon, something happened that I still can't forget. Ethan had left his phone on the kitchen counter while he went upstairs to shower. Normally, I wouldn't even think about touching it. I always respected his privacy. I always believed trust meant not questioning. But now, trust felt different. It felt like something I was being forced to rethink. I stood there for a few seconds just staring at his phone. My heart was already beating faster before I even touched it. And then, almost without thinking, I picked it up. The screen was locked, but notifications were visible. And that was when I saw it. A message from the same unknown contact I had seen before. Short, sharp, and enough to make my stomach drop instantly. It said, "She's getting closer. Be careful." My fingers went cold. I didn't even move for a moment. Because in that second I knew one thing clearly. She was me again. I quickly locked the phone and placed it back exactly where it was, trying to make my hand stop shaking. But inside, something had already changed. This wasn't confusion anymore. This was confirmation. That evening, I couldn't act normal. I tried, but it felt impossible. Every smile felt forced. Every word felt heavier than usual. Ethan noticed it too. He asked me if I was okay, and I just nodded and said I was tired. He accepted that answer too easily. Maybe too easily. And that alone made me even more uneasy. Later that night, I decided to test something. When we were sitting together, I casually asked him who had been calling him the day before. There was a small pause before he answered. Just a second, but I felt it clearly. Then he smiled slightly and said it was work stuff, nothing important. His voice was calm, but his eyes didn't match it. And that mismatch stayed in my mind long after the conversation ended. That night, I couldn't sleep. I kept replaying everything in my head. The voice note, the hidden calls, the message I had seen, the way he always reacted too quickly to his phone. Slowly, something started forming in my mind. Not a full picture yet, but enough to make me uncomfortable. Enough to make me realize that I wasn't just overthinking anymore. This wasn't random behavior. It felt organized. Like everything had a purpose behind it that I wasn't part of. And the worst part was the growing realization that whatever was happening had already started long before I noticed it. By the time morning came, I had made a decision. I couldn't keep waiting for answers from him. If Ethan wasn't going to tell me the truth, then I would find it myself. Quietly. Carefully. Without him ever realizing that I had stopped just being his wife and started paying attention like someone trying to uncover a secret. And that was the moment everything truly changed, because I still didn't know that whatever I was about to find would not just explain the voice note, but completely break the life I thought I was living. After making that decision, I stopped acting like nothing was wrong. Not outwardly, but inside, something in me had shifted completely. I wasn't just confused anymore. I was aware. And awareness changes the way you see everything, even the things you once trusted without question. I started observing Ethan in a way I never had before. Not emotionally, but carefully, like I was trying to understand a pattern. And the more I watched him, the more I realized how much I had missed all this time. It wasn't just the phone calls or the messages anymore. It was his entire behavior. The way he always positioned his phone away from me. The way he stepped outside for calls even when nothing seemed urgent. The way he sometimes stopped mid-sentence when he noticed me looking at him. Everything felt connected now. One evening, I decided I couldn't just sit and watch anymore. I needed something real. Something I could confirm with my own eyes. So I waited for the right moment. Ethan left his phone on the table again while he went to take a shower. My heart was already racing before I even moved. This time, I didn't hesitate. I picked it up immediately and checked the messages again. The same contact was there. But now there was a new message waiting. She's too close. We need to change the plan. My hands tightened around the phone. I read it again and again, trying to understand what plan they were talking about. But there was no explanation. Just fragments of conversations that made less sense on their own, but felt dangerous when put together. And then I saw something else. A scheduled call, with a time set for later that night. My breath slowed, because now I had something I could use. Not just suspicion, not just feelings, something real. I quickly put the phone back exactly how it was and stepped away. But inside, I was no longer the same person who had picked it up. That night felt different. He acted normal again, like nothing was happening. But I couldn't unsee what I had read. I couldn't pretend anymore. Every time he smiled, I felt like there was something behind it I wasn't being told. After dinner, he went into the bedroom earlier than usual, saying he had an early meeting. I waited a few minutes, then quietly followed him. Not to confront him. Not yet. I just wanted to see. And that was when I heard it. His phone ringing inside the room. I stood still outside the door, my heart beating so loudly, I thought he might hear it. I didn't enter. I just listened. His voice came through, low and controlled. He wasn't speaking loudly, but I could hear enough. Yes, she hasn't found anything yet. A pause. No, we can't rush this. And then something that made my stomach drop completely. Once it's done, she won't have a choice anymore. I took a step back without realizing it. My mind couldn't process it properly. Won't have a choice anymore wasn't a normal sentence. It wasn't about misunderstanding or work. It sounded final, controlled, planned. I walked away slowly before he could notice anything, my thoughts completely scattered. My body felt cold, but my mind was burning with questions. What plan? What done? And why did it involve me in a way that sounded like I had no control over it? When I got back to the living room, I sat down trying to breathe normally, but it wasn't working anymore. Because now, I wasn't just looking at strange behavior. I was looking at intention. And intention always leads somewhere. That night, I realized something I didn't want to accept. This wasn't just about a voice note sent by mistake. This was something ongoing. Something structured. something I had already been part of long before I even noticed, and I was running out of time to understand it. I didn't sleep at all that night. Every word I had heard kept replaying in my mind like a loop I couldn't escape. She hasn't found anything yet. Once it's done, she won't have a choice anymore. Those sentences didn't feel like random conversations anymore. They felt like decisions being made about my life without my permission. By morning, something inside me had changed completely. Fear was still there, but it was no longer controlling me. It had turned into clarity. I finally understood one thing clearly. I couldn't wait for answers anymore. If I kept waiting, I would only keep living inside confusion while something bigger was happening around me. That day, I acted normal. I made breakfast. I spoke to Ethan like nothing had changed. I even smiled when he left for a few minutes. But inside, I was focused on one thing only. I needed proof. Real proof. Not fragments. Not overheard words. Something undeniable. When he went into the shower that evening, I knew this was my moment. I waited for the water sound to get louder, then slowly walked toward his phone again. My hands weren't shaking this time. I was strangely calm. Almost too calm. I picked up his phone and opened the scheduled call I had seen before. My heart slowed when I saw the details. There was a name attached and a time set for later that night. But what froze me wasn't just that. It was the note written under it. Final step. After this, she agrees, or everything changes. I stared at it without blinking, because now there was no confusion left. No excuses left to make for him in my mind. Whatever this was, it wasn't just hiding. It was planning. And I was the target of that plan. I put the phone back exactly how it was and stepped away, but this time I didn't feel like running away from the truth anymore. I felt like I needed to face it. That night, I made a decision I couldn't take back. When Ethan came out of the bedroom later, I was already waiting in the living room. He looked at me and smiled like always, but I didn't return it the same way. I asked him to sit down. Just that simple request changed the atmosphere immediately. His smile faded slightly, like he already knew something was different. "Is everything okay?" he asked. I looked at him for a long moment before answering. "I think you should tell me the truth tonight." There was silence. Not confusion. Not surprise. Just silence. And in that silence, I understood everything I needed to know. He wasn't going to deny it easily. Finally, he sighed and looked away. "I didn't want you to find out like this," he said quietly. My chest tightened. Find out what? He didn't answer immediately. Instead, he stood up and walked toward the window, like he needed space to say it. And then he said something I wasn't ready for. "This was supposed to protect you." I felt my stomach drop. Protect me from what? He turned back slowly. "From everything that was coming for you, including your own life choices." For a moment, I couldn't even respond, because the way he said it didn't sound like an excuse. It sounded like he truly believed it. And then the truth started coming out. Not all at once. Slowly. Carefully. Like he had been holding it back for too long. He told me the voice note wasn't a mistake. It was part of something he had been forced into. That someone had been watching me for a long time, before I even noticed. That every message, every call, every accident was actually controlled. And that if I had found out earlier in the wrong way, things could have become dangerous. My mind struggled to process it, because it didn't feel real. It felt like something bigger than both of us. But then he said the final thing that broke everything I thought I knew. "The plan was never to hurt you," he said quietly. "It was to control what happens next in your life before someone else does." Silence filled the room after that. Not fear this time. Understanding. Slow, heavy understanding. Because suddenly, the voice note didn't feel like betrayal anymore. It felt like a warning I was never meant to question too early. I sat down slowly, trying to process everything. My world didn't feel the same anymore. It wasn't broken, it was rebuilt in a way I didn't understand yet. Ethan looked at me one last time and said softly, "Now you know enough to decide what happens next." And for the first time in days, I realized the truth wasn't just about him. It was about what I was going to do with it.